Good evening, and welcome to our final presentation on decent work and economic growth in Mexico, featuring Team 15. In the coming slides, we will discuss the unique challenges that Mexico faces, while also discussing some strategies for economic enhancement. Stay tuned.
So I would first like to introduce Team 15. We have Fatma, who will be going over the purpose and objective, myself, Kaylee, who will be going over global evidence, Samantha on the analysis, and we have Marcus ending it off with country-specific focus and initiative.
All right, thank you for that, Kaylee. All right, so with part one, purpose and objective, what we would be looking at as Team 15 is SDG number 8, which is decent work and economic growth in Mexico. We're looking at the development and sustainability of economic growth and stabilizing decent work within Mexico. And the way we're going to do that is to make sure we have a good idea what to expect and to know the background of of Mexico's economy. We would be looking at GDP, we would be looking at GNI, we would be also looking at the political aspect of Mexico, and to tie all of that into getting our internet accessibility. And with that, we should be able to come up with a good response on how we can tackle that. So what are we exploring in Mexico? We're exploring how big data can be utilized to promote sustainable economic growth and decent work for all within Mexico. We would be looking at the big data V's, which is volume, variety, velocity, and veracity. Now, the ultimate challenge is to be able to add the ultimate value in Mexico by bridging the digital divide within that infrastructure of internet accessibility. The digital service transformation will obviously start with user need, and our main goal is to be able to bridge that gap and come up with a positive response.
The main focus of Sustainable Development Goal number 8 is to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and to provide decent work for all.
The fourth industrial revolution has globally propelled us into stronger digital platforms. Some of these benefits include job creations, artificial intelligence, and access to information. Our Sustainable Development Goal of number 8 relies heavily on access to digital platforms and information. Technology bonded with the resources to reach those in need of virtual connectivity is how the two relate. One cannot work without the other. Because of the acceleration of technology, we can now globally connect. By bringing the virtual resources to Mexico, this will create better opportunities for those seeking to enhance their circumstances.
In this slide, we've decided to focus on big data and its association to international development. We've actually decided to focus on 3 points, which we felt were most important, which were data analysis, obviously with big data that incorporates accumulation of large amounts of data, and it takes a lot to analyze these. So analysis is important in order to predict the future data trends of a population in order to, serve what's best for that population. Next, we take a look at data management and networking. We utilize this data in order to negotiate as well as serve in a direction toward what's best for an economic growth for a specific nation and population. Lastly, we go into global understanding. Having an understanding of this data helps us on a diplomatic standpoint, I think, to really serve each other and help each other.
Part 2 of our presentation will be going over global evidence and analysis. We will be discussing our visualizations from our data collected on Mexico.
For visualization 1, we take a look at this heat map discussing the average internet users over percentage of household users, as well as the average bandwidth capacity over the bits per internet users for each nation. Now, in specification, what's shown is Mexico, the country of of our choice. Essentially, this is important within our goal, the SDG goal number 8, for creating a better economy and a better opportunity for work, because it's shown correlation that with there being more accessibility to internet and more accessibility to technology, that that increases the amount of work that is accessible to each person within the country and economic growth.
So, as you can see here in visualization number 2, Mexico is showing a high percentage of trust in online privacy. This number is at 78%. While they do have a relatively low percentage of population connected, something that Marcus discussed in the previous slide, trust in online privacy is not the reason why. Mexico has the highest percentage of trust in online privacy in North America. This data is showing us that they are experiencing other barriers to connectivity and not distrust. Countries like Japan and South Korea have a high percentage of internet users, but a low percentage of trust in online privacy. Because Mexico has a high percentage of online internet trust, this would be a great country to bring further digital resources to.
So as you can see here with visualization number 3, we are looking at support for digital literacy. This is within Mexico, and also average rural electricity access and level of literacy percentage of population. So what we are seeing here is it's not something that we cannot achieve. It's just a matter of how we can make the impossible to the possible. We are able to do that with certain factors, and we should be able to achieve our goal in order to make sure that that digital aspect is available and accessible.
As discussed by Samantha and Fatma in the previous visualizations, Mexico has a high trust in privacy, high support for digital literacy, a high literacy rate, and rural and urban electricity access. So why is only half of Mexico's population online? I wanted to look at what could be a key barrier to this digital divide. I created visualization 4 to look at smartphone affordability and fixed line broadband costs to see if this could be a factor. From the data, it appears that one of Mexico's key barriers is affordability, using around 2.5% of monthly GNI compared to other countries that are more connected, using only around 1 or less percent of the monthly GNI to get online.
Part 3 of our presentation will discuss our country-specific focus and our initiative. Kaylee will start by discussing why we chose Mexico.
So why Mexico? As we learned from the data from the previous visualizations, Mexico has the foundations to start bridging the digital divide. Government is fully on board to support digital literacy. They have started the Mexico Conectado initiative, which already has $1 billion invested into. Policymakers and the government understand that the digital divide between the country's richest and the poorest is a problem for the country's economic growth. It is now essential in a digital world to have affordable access to internet. We want to help make it easier and more accessible to apply for jobs, advance your skill set, or organize for better labor rights and wages. By making internet access more affordable, it will help reduce poverty levels, create decent work, and help grow the economy.
Thank you, Kaylee, for discussing why our group chose Mexico. In this slide, I will be discussing some of the key features and facts of Mexico. Attached to this slide, we have created a pestle analysis. Mexico is a presidential federal republic with 3 branches and unfortunately experiences massive political corruption. Its current population is 130 million and its GDP is 1.4 trillion. While it is the most affordable country in the region, it does experience a large wealth gap. Some of the big tech names like Google and Amazon are setting up business there. Mexico can now utilize cryptocurrency, crowdfunding, and digital technology. There is a federal judiciary system with 3 tiers, and it does contain labor laws that protect the rights of employees. While the tourist attractions are high, unfortunately, so is the air and water pollution.
So it all comes down to how are we going to be able to close that gap of being able to have that internet accessibility for all? Obviously, you can see the biggest factor is going to be cost. So how are you going to be able to do, what are you going to be able to do to minimize that? What are you going to be able to do to have that achieved? You know, with income being a big issue, there is no middle gap. It's either the very wealthy or the very poor. And 42% of people within Mexico live on the poverty line, and they're unable to get internet. So that's one thing we would need to do, our initiative, to be able to solve that issue.
Finally, we discuss our initiative, which is to encounter economic depletion resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic through targeting unemployed workers and short-staffed workplaces from search engine data to achieve full and productive unemployment. Now, we focus specifically within the C initiative on the key barrier of accessibility to technology and the internet. Now, why is this? Well, looking back on our data that we discussed and our analysis, we've come to the conclusion, like we've said before, that there's a strong correlation between internet accessibility and technology accessibility with the accessibility to economic growth and jobs. Now, being that Mexico is, like we said, we have a very polarized system to where there's a high class and there's a low class. There's not much of a middle class. Now, if we gave more accessibility to the low class, to internet and technology, being that they're not as wealthy, but help them with having accessibility to this, then this could potentially stimulate the economy and as well as create more jobs. Being that giving them accessibility to technology and internet, this would allow them to have more formal training and development for the workplace, which would then create more job opportunities, which would then stimulate the economy and increase economic growth sustainably. And so this directly correlates to our Sustainable Development Goal number 8 with decent work and economic growth as well. Some similar initiatives that we do see as well are the Mexico Conectado initiative, which helps to bring internet access all over by adding broadband connections to libraries, schools, hospitals, and public areas, as well as promoting sustainable, another one is promoting sustainable tourism with mobile phones in hotspots such as Mexico. Now, with UN support, I think that would be a great way to have a push in the right direction, being that Mexico is considered a corrupt nation, the government being a corrupt entity. Now, I think using reverse psychology in the way, sort of encouraging them, being that it would help economic growth not only for the low class, but for the high class as well. Coming at it from that angle would be the best way in order to help to encourage that.
Here's all of our references. If anything